public and the patients are not informed that this is a completely benign foodborne illness that never has had its cause treated. You know, ever since the days of Hippocrates, there's been a basic covenant of trust between the caregiver and the patient that wherever possible, the caregiver will share with the patient what is the causation of the illness. However, today, in cardiovascular medicine, that simply is not being done, all right? Now, this is Walter Willett from Harvard, who's chairman of public health. Here's what he thinks about the present situation. The current path leads to increasing adiposity, diabetes mellitus, cardiovascular disease, and disability, and an unfit, socially isolated population stuffed with pills, subjected to frequent palliative procedures. So, I want to share with you now today 2 studies that I was involved in where these were patients who had severe cardiovascular disease. Back in 1985, I was still quite busy as a surgeon, and I was a general surgeon. I was chairman of our breast cancer task force. But the whole goal here was to see if we could take these patients who were seriously ill with heart disease and give them the same type of nutrition that we saw in those nations where the disease is virtually non-existent. And the question was, with this initial group, the rock upon which I felt that this study was most likely to flounder was lack of patient compliance. I was not a trained psychologist, and I decided that I would use for these patients the same mantra that I'd used for my cancer patients that I learned years ago from a wonderful surgeon on the West Coast by the name of Bert Dunphy. And Bert had said that patients with cancer are not afraid to suffer. Patients with cancer are not afraid to die. But patients with cancer are afraid of being abandoned by their family or by their physician. So for the first 5 years of this study, I saw every one of these 24 patients in my office every 2 weeks. We drew their cholesterol, blood pressure, weight, and I went over every morsel they ate. At the end of 5 years, we stretched it out to once a month. At the end of a decade, now they were on autopilot, so we could do it quarterly. Now, the key here is, and by now maybe you've understood, you must not injure your endothelial cell. So I was very competitive, and I did not want these patients to eat one single morsel of food that would in any way injure the endothelial cells. Now, I know this is a tough sell in Italy, but here you go. No oil, olive oil, corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, coconut oil, palm oil. Oil injures the endothelial cells. Oil in a cracker, oil in a piece of bread, oil in a salad dressing. Oil will injure the endothelial cell. I think we got it clear now. I'll show. And also, anything with a mother or a face, meat, fish, chicken, fowl, turkey, gone. Anything that's dairy, milk, cream, butter, cheese, ice cream, yogurt, gone. And we've got to be very careful about sugar. Too much maple syrup, molasses, or honey. All right. I can see that there's some in the audience who's saying, what is he saying about olive oil? Here is the science. We'll read it together. Olive, soybean, and palm oil intake have a similar acute detrimental effect over the endothelial function in healthy young subjects. Pretty clear, pretty clear. Okay. Now, here is some exciting research from the Cleveland Clinic. Stan Hazen and his group They looked at the molecules that are in animal produce and animal foods, lecithin and carnitine. Dr. Campbell told you earlier, we have between 10 and 100 trillion cells. We have many more trillions of bacteria in our intestine than we have cells. But if you are an omnivore, if you are eating dairy, if you're eating animal protein, you will have the bacteria in your intestine that when you metabolize lecithin and carnitine, what you will get as a product is trimethylamine, which is oxidized by your liver to trimethylamine oxide. So here is the sequence. Lecithin and carnitine are in the animal food you're eating. You have gut bacteria that metabolize the lecithin and carnitine into trimethylamine, which is oxidized by your liver to trimethylamine oxide, which promotes vascular disease. But the exciting thing about this, when those researchers took somebody who was totally plant-based in their nutrition and fed them lecithin or carnitine or a pork chop or a steak, then they measured their bloodstream. No TMA, no trimethylamine oxide. Why? Because if you are totally plant-based in your nutrition, your gut, your intestine does not contain the bacteria that will manufacture or metabolize carnitine and lecithin into TMAO. However, if you do this steak or lamb chop for as much as 3, 4, 5, 6 days, then you change your bacteria into the bad kind. Okay. So what are you going to eat? All these wonderful whole grains for your cereal, bread, and pasta, 101 different types of legumes or beans, all these marvelous red, yellow, and green leafy vegetables, and some fruit. Now, do you recall earlier in my presentation when I showed you the drawing of the artery that had been cut in half from Peter Libby from Harvard? And you recall that once your LDL cholesterol enters into that subendothelial space, it becomes oxidized to that small, hard, dense LDL cholesterol. So I want you to now think about the blockages in the plaque that are in the artery are like an absolute cauldron of oxidative inflammation. So your blockage in your plaque is oxidative inflammation. We therefore need antioxidants. No, do not go down to the health food store and buy a jug of pills that says antioxidant. It doesn't work, and it's going to be harmful. I want you to get your antioxidants from food. What food? Food that is high in ORAC value. O-R-A-C, oxygen radical absorptive capacity. What are those foods? Yes, raspberries, blueberries, and strawberries on your cereal. That's fine. But the absolute champ, the top of the heap, are the green leafy vegetables. Now, maybe this is why we succeed where others fail, because I will share with you now that I have a reputation as a taskmaster. Not as mean as I look, but anyway, I want my patients with heart disease to have the green leafy vegetables 6 times a day, cooked 5.5 to 6 minutes in boiling water so it's nice and tender, and then you can anoint it with several drops of lemon or several drops of a delightful balsamic vinegar, so you have something that's tender and delicious. Then I want you to chew this 6 times a day. alongside your breakfast cereal. Again, as a mid-morning snack. Yes, with your luncheon sandwich. Mid-afternoon. Yes, at dinner time. And I adore it when you have that evening snack of kale. What are you doing? All day long, you are bathing and you are basking that oxidative cauldron of inflammation with nature's most powerful antioxidants. And that's why we often will see patients with chest pain, angina, disappear in days. 5 days, 6 days, 2 weeks. Markedly diminished, often gone. And then, of course, you've absolutely hooked the patient when they see their pain going away.